Good Thursday to you, everybody in COM 110. Welcome again to week 7. So, in this video, I'm going to very quickly explain the final speech for the semester. Now, some of you reached out to me and asked, hey, could we get the assignment posted early? Because, the last week is crazy week and some of us are getting ready to travel and do this. Like, okay, yeah, no problem. So the assignment is up right now over in Canvas in the assignment tabs. All right. Just like the other speeches, it's worth 150 points. It's due on October the 10th because the whole class wraps and we are done October the 12th, which is a Saturday, which is kind of weird to end a class. But anyway, but you have your final exam from the 10th to the 11th. Okay. Now, before I explain the final assignment, I want to emphasize how important it is to get this final speech in on time. Some of you, for all the other 3 speeches, have sort of gotten it on time, and then some of you later. Class is done after the 12th, and admissions and records ride me like a circus pony to get the grades in on time. So I just don't have after the 12th the time to give you to do late work. It's not a matter of what I like; it's what I can't do. All right. So the 12th, that's hard. That's a hard deadline. That's out of my control. So this speech number 4, will be due on the 10th. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about it and the reason I'm making this video. As you should have read in the module that I posted back on Tuesday, which is the beginning of your academic week. This final speech, the descriptive narrative, is less a style of speech, like say, as opposed to commemorative or explanative, as it is a style of speaking. But it's extremely important as a style of speaking. It can be used in any of the types of speeches that you might have to give. But its importance is that it taps into a hardwired structure in the brains of especially Westerners, and that is we Westerners tend to be very linear thinkers. Now, this isn't true for all peoples around the world, but when you get to the point in which you're speaking cross-culturally, then you'll solve that problem. But for right now, understand that Western audiences think in a linear fashion, and as such, when they hear a story, they're programmed. Their brains are programmed to be looking for a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, it's true that in storytelling and in speech giving, that it tends towards the cliche, like, oh, ho, hum, when haven't we had this before? That everything gets wrapped up in a nice little ending, or as the cliche goes, in a nice little package with a little bow on it by the time you get to the end of the story, and all the conflicts are resolved and all the questions are answered. That's not how life works. We all know that, okay? But we're not talking about life. We're talking about speech giving, which is storytelling, which needs a structure. So there are a number of structures that you can use to put together whatever style of speech. But the 3-act structure that I discussed in the module for this week is probably, I don't have statistics to back this up, but I'm going to bet is the most commonly and widely used structure. And as such, it's the most common and widely anticipated structure. See, bonus for you if you understand how to tap into that. Okay, well, what is it? Now, I've given you a couple of sheets for you to take a look at that explain the 3-act structure. Okay, and one of them is rather long. It's about 11 pages. You keep this for your own use. Now, for this week's quiz, yes, you're going to need to know, you're going to be expected to know the elements within the 3-act narrative, because that's going to form part of your quiz. And for this week's module, I've given you a story that I published in a magazine. And I think I actually had a copy of the magazine around here somewheres. Maybe I don't. But anyway, oh yes, do I? No, I don't. Anyhow, in which I employed this 3-act structure. Okay, so read through the attached piece that says descriptive writing 3-act structure. And there's a little visual at the top, so it looks like this little roller coaster. And then there's an explanation as to what each of these elements are. But essentially, because beginning, middle, and end, those are the 3 acts. How do things begin? What transpires to go to the middle? How do things then change in the middle? What transpires to go to the end, and how are things wrapped up at the end? If you're not used to some of this language, right, and this is these terms like plot point and inciting incident, you'll see this on the sheet. These are terms commonly used by writers, whether they're speech writers or script writers or story writers or novel writers. This is the type of language, of terminology that gets thrown around. A couple of things to remember. This is a place of confusion. A plot point is somewhere in the story where the main actor, the protagonist, and in the exercise for this week, that's going to be, the exercise for your last speech, that's going to be you. A plot point is where the main actor or the protagonist does something different. Their behavior, their attitude, their outlook changes. Now, sometimes you'll see in some of these graphs for 3-act structure the term pinch point. Right? A pinch point is the event that pushes the protagonist to do something different. So in the story that I gave you, there are some pinch points. Encountering the bear is a pinch point. This is an event that pushes the protagonist, in this case me, to think about himself and life and aging differently than he had thought about it before. Okay, so the bear is the pinch point. The plot point is how, me, it sounds weird to talk about myself in the third person, how the protagonist in the story, that's me, changes his outlook. Okay, so if you see that term come up, if you're looking for any of this stuff and you see pinch point, don't get confused. Okay, so back to the assignment. So for the final speech, here's what I want you to do. All right, I want you to construct a descriptive narrative. Okay, and the subject of the speech is you. Okay, I want you to construct a descriptive narrative about yourself that focuses on an episode in your life in which an event changed your understanding of yourself or the world around you, or maybe both. It doesn't, they're not exclusionary to each other. And I want you to use the 3-act narrative structure to tell your story. Now, remember, as part of descriptive narratives, I want you to use some vivid details. And if you read the story, well, if you need to, you read, because it's going to be on the quiz. Read the story that I've attached to this week's module about the encounter with the bear. Look for the vivid language in which I talk about the colors of the forest and the tastes of the food and the sharpness of the thoughts in my mind, or the visual description of what aging is like. Okay, so use some vivid details. Use figurative language, metaphors, analogies, similes. Look for those in the story that I've attached to this week's module. Try to use precise language. Shorter sentences are better than longer sentences when where descriptive narratives are concerned. Now, you might say, okay, well, how actually does that work? Because, if I'm describing something, don't I need more words? No, not necessarily. Okay. What you need are phrasings that make the image stick in the mind of the reader or the listener. Okay, they can be very short and right to the point. Okay, and then organize this intentionally, that is thoughtfully. Now, there are a number of ways to organize a descriptive narrative, but for this exercise, I would like you to use the 3-act structure. And I've given you 2 sheets. I've attached 2 sheets to the assignment. Maybe I'll go back and attach them both to the module. I don't know. Okay. The one of them is the 11-page one that I'm referring to, that I just referred to, that explains each of the elements. Here is the second one. All right. And this is one that I've actually used as a speechwriter and a storyteller. Okay. And it's, I got it out of a book somewhere, copyright. I can't exactly tell you. I remember where. I'm someone that does well when I visualize what it is that I'm doing, even when what I'm doing is what I'm saying, by way of speaking or by way of writing. If I can see the layout in my head, it makes organizing the words much easier for me. If you're one of those people, I've attached this sheet, and it looks something like this. And if it looks like it's been copied out of a book, that's because it has. Okay. All right. And here, so for instance, we'll start over here. Here's where the protagonist is and what the protagonist's motivations are. And then there's some sort of an inciting incident, some sort of encounter. So in the story that I gave you from me, the first inciting incident is the birthday. Okay. It's coming up. I'm getting old. It's like, oh, hey, this is kind of a wake-up call. Something's going on in the narrative of my life. Okay. So off I go on a hike. And then here's the first obstacle. That is, the obstacle is, what am I doing out here? What's the point of cranking out all of these miles? And what does it really say about me? And what am I really trying to say to myself and to the rest of the world? I mean, and this actually is based on a true story. I actually did what I wrote about. When I did it, I wasn't thinking of writing a story. I was sort of lost in the, oh my gosh, I'm getting older and I haven't been able to crank out the miles on the trail like I used to. I better go out there and get at it, even though it was a ridiculously hot day. And I had no business being out on a 16, 17-mile hike. Probably not my smartest move. But anyway, okay, so back to the diagram. And then, so during the hike, so the tension is rising as I'm thinking about all of the things I'm trying to follow here. The tension is rising, okay? Let me just use this finger. Okay, tension is rising on the hike. And then the turning point, the meeting with the bear, okay? And then, what's going, here we go. The experiencing, and everything is changing. How I see the world changes. And this leads to sort of a crisis. Now, crisis doesn't necessarily mean, oh, the house is on fire. As you read in the story that I've attached, the crisis is, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I've thought about this all the wrong way, notably in giving it too much thought in the first place. Maybe the point, the thing to learn about how to think about this is to stop thinking about it all the time and just be present. Okay? So crisis doesn't necessarily mean that the house is on fire. Crisis means something is changing, and it's going to shift your view of yourself and of the world. Back to the diagram. Okay? And then this sort of brings a bit of tension. Now, in the case of the story that I attach, the tension is happy tension. You could say, oh, and I was happier than I ever had been. I didn't realize that things could be so great in life. I didn't realize how well I could get along, and I'd always made it too hard. I'm changing a habit, a way that I used to do something. Okay, so this is bringing tension, and this tension between myself and the bear. It's like, what is this? Is this animal trying to tell me something? Is encountering encountering the animal? Am I trying to tell myself something? Is this God working in my life through this encounter? Has it always been in my head, like the fragments of music, which actually happens, by the way, the tortured soul? What is it that is going on? Okay, so here we go back to back to the diagram again. And then finally, let's see if we can get it to focus. Okay, the climax. How do things come out, and then how do things get over here? Let's try to just do this like this. Okay, there we go. Falling action, how do things get resolved? Okay, and in the case of my story, the climax was realizing as I was sitting down trail on the boulders talking with my son about encountering the bear, the climax was realizing that, yo, man, stop wasting time obsessing about time, because time is going to sweep you along. Whether you learn to be right in the now, or you're constantly obsessing about what's coming in the later. All right. And then the resolution in my story is, as I finished the hike, the prodding music started again, like back to the original tension. But I now, because my understanding had changed, my understanding of myself, my understanding of my place in the world had changed, it didn't affect me in the same way. It wasn't as bad. And actually, I'm like, maybe there's something instructive in what my brain is trying to tell me, rather than poking, like do this, poke, future. Okay. That's how you could use this sheet. You can download it and print it out. You don't have to. All right. So I wanted to explain what the world that thing is. In fact, I'm using it right now. I'm writing an article, I think for the same magazine. I'm writing an article on how and why attitudes about what you're supposed to do when you're outside in the wilderness have changed. And, just to give you a little sneak peek. And by the way, if any of you want to, read what it is that I do, whatever floats your boat, I mean, I hope you would enjoy it. Let me know, and I will send you a little link to how it is you tune in and follow my stuff and where you get it. But that's beside the point. So in this article, I'm taking a look at sort of the historical sweep of how attitudes about what it is you're supposed to do when you're outside have changed. Notably, today there's a significant current that, and it's, don't expect logic here, okay? Because if what I'm about to tell you go, oh, that's weird, it's because it is. The strong current is that people should be outside. We should be going outside, but human influence doesn't belong in the wilderness. You should get into the wilderness. You should get out into the wild, but human influence doesn't belong in the wilderness, which doesn't go together. Okay. I mean, you can't float through a wilderness in spirit and not be there in body, in physical self, and anywhere, anytime, anyhow, any way, there's a physical presence in or next to another physical presence, there's going to be an impact. That's not me. That's just how the dang world works. So I find it really curious, and I've had a couple of encounters while out on the trail with people that are they're just like fundamentalist preachers, man. And I mean, in a bad way, that they just go off on how there should be no human trace whatsoever. And I think, one of the things that sparked my interest in writing this article was I was reading a story on my way back from a trip, a long mountain climbing trek that we took overseas. And so I was sitting on the plane reading this story in an outdoor magazine about how some people, and they don't know who, some probably a person, was taking clay, mud, and shaping it into little human faces, we're talking about like so big, maybe even like a big brooch, shaping into little human faces and placing these little faces at places along the trail, and then writing in the mud little messages like, have a great day, and stuff like if the trail seems tough, you can do it. Okay. And the people who were on the trail, when they got off the trail, there was a core of them. They were going nuts oh, how, this is horrible. This is art, and it's a human manufactured artifice, and it has no business being on the trail. And it's like, whoa, 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 slow down. Everybody don't get your hiking shorts in a twist. It's made out of mud, and the next time it rains, it'll be gone. Okay, it's not like they're putting up these granite monuments or nailing a picture frame to a tree. I read that and I go, whoa, what is going on here? How is it that we're always pushing everybody to get out in the wild, but yet you're supposed to do it in a way as if you were never there, except for all of the designated trails, all of the signage, all of the designated campsites, all the designated fire rings, and all of that stuff. Weird. No? Would you not agree? I mean, whether you spend time out in the wild or not, that's a weird juxtaposition. There's a tension in there. So I thought, okay, how can I tell this story, explaining historically how we got to this point? Because there is an actual story behind it. Well, I could use the 3-act structure, right? And so I pulled out the sheet. I used the 3-act structure in organizing this article, thinking about the exercise we were doing in this class. Normally, I would just sit down at the keyboard and go, okay. So, and it looks, and I'm not going to be able to explain all this because I write like a chicken that's on a triple espresso. All right, but it looks something like this. Okay, but I'll start down here with the protagonist. And it's just, I just want to backpack. I just want to be out in nature. I don't want the politics. I don't want, it's like people out there throwing cans of soup onto pictures in museums and then gluing themselves to the wall. I don't know if you've seen any of that, the Never Oil or the Stop Oil people. And I was in Paris this last summer. We just kind of went and hung out there for a while, for about a month. And I've had the chance to live and work in Paris a couple of times, and I went back to some of the museums I love, and I thought, I have to confess, if I see some knucklehead, that's a nice way to put it, throwing anything on any of these paintings, no, it's not going to end well, probably for both of us. So anyhow, so that's me, the protagonist, and what's my motivation here? I just want a backpack. Okay, and then I go through the whole story arc, recounting some things that actually happened to me, encounters with people who are illustrations of this very weird attitude about people moving through wild spaces, and how, on the one hand, everybody's supposed to get out and get there, but on the other hand, it's supposed to be like you were never there. Okay. And I'm not talking about, cutting down all the trees and stomping down all the flowers so there's nothing left to see. There is an enormous difference, okay, between massive transformation of the land by way of industrial process and this prevailing attitude that it should look like you were never there. Again, except for all of the established trails, the signage, the established campgrounds, the established fire rings, and the so on and so on and so on. Okay. All right. Anyway, enough about me. So the assignment is up. You can post it whenever you like, up to and including, near the stroke of midnight on October 10th. But please, as I noted in the beginning of this video, you have got to be attentive to this deadline, because it is the end of the class, and the registrar's office, they take no pity on me, and they give me no wiggle room to turn in grades late. Okay, if you have any questions about the sheet, which you need to review, including the story that I have attached, need to review those for the quiz coming up this week, or about this visual sheet, which you don't have to use, but just in case you're a visual thinker like I am. If you have any questions about that, reach out to me. I will be happy to help you. Okay, everybody, have a great rest of the week. God bless, and I'll see you on Canvas. Bye-bye.